How do you prefer to cook your fajitas? Low and slow or hot and fast? Today, we're going to put them to the test. Today we've got some Wagyu inside skirt steaks, and the reason that we wanted to do this comparison is because this past weekend we were at a competition and we just noticed that a lot of people were cooking fajitas for the competition in a very different way than we do. So we noticed that a lot of people were cooking these low and slow and not necessarily just smoking them, but almost a reverse sear on them. And we've always done fajitas hot and fast. I prefer that crust. I prefer that texture. But today we just want to try something different. We want to see if we've been cooking them wrong this entire time. So we're going to start with an AP rub all over top of these fajitas. Make sure to get the backside as well. You guys can trim these up if you want, but we're just going to eat these here at our house, and I'm not too worried about trimming them up. Even through that AP seasoning, you can see the marbling running through this skirt steak. These are going to turn out absolutely incredible just about any way that we make them. Today we're cooking our fajitas on our Weber kettle. I noticed a lot of people were using their Weber kettle, and we're going to start with B&B briquettes. Because this is not an extremely long cook, I only need around 3/4 of a chimney. Now I've got two B&B fire starters that I'm going to light up. And then I'm going to put my charcoal chimney right over top. Now keep in mind, this test is low and slow versus hot and fast. So these briquettes do not need to be all the way lit. Around 50% of the way is going to be perfect. Over time, they're going to get hotter and hotter. And in the end, we're going to be able to sear everything off. My charcoal is good and hot, so I'm going to go ahead and pour it on one end of my kettle. You guys can see here again, I was looking to not get every single one of my briquettes completely whited over. And the reason is because, like I said, I want this to be a little bit lower, and I want those temps to climb as we're cooking these fajitas. I'm going to go ahead and put my grate in now. And I'm just going to go ahead and put one of the fajitas on the opposite side of the coals. Kind of like we talked about. We'll sear them off in the end, but for now, I want that low and slow effect, and then we'll be right back to sear both of these at the same exact time. Always put the vents of your Weber kettle right above your food. That way all of the smoke can travel over the food and out these vents. It's been about 20 minutes on these fajitas, and I just wanted to open up this chamber and kind of get an idea of where we're at with this cook. So don't forget, we are basically reverse searing these fajitas. And right now I'm sitting around 94, 93 degrees internal. So I'm going to get to about 115 degrees, and then I'm going to sear them over the hot coals. Pretty soon we'll also start searing the other one from the get-go. And like I told you guys a little bit ago, these coals are getting nice and hot. You can see, because I have the cook chamber open and it's getting a little bit of oxygen, it's actually pretty dang hot right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just turn these fajitas around. You can see how soft that meat is already. And that's just because it's a really nice cut of meat. It's Wagyu skirt steak. You can see those fibers are basically just like falling apart. So I think these are going to be super duper tender and super duper flavorful, even though we didn't add too much seasoning to it. But let's continue this cook. Like I said, here in about 10 or so minutes, we'll start searing the other skirt steak. My first set of fajitas are almost where I want them, so let's go ahead and start searing off this second set. You can hear right when they hit, there's a nice sizzle. So there also is a lot of fat here, so we really need to be careful when we're searing these, because this flame can really get out of control with those drippings. I'm just going to go ahead and continuously flip this just so we can get some nice color. And again, because this is that Wagyu, I can already tell by the smell and just the way I'm getting that caramelization that there's so much fat here. This is going to be extremely rich. So just a few seconds later, you can see we already have those grill marks there. So we know that this fire is extremely hot. Like I said, we're just going to keep flipping this. Kind of use that Arnie Tex method, the flippity method, whatever he calls it. And we just want to get these perfectly cooked. I'm looking for around 135 degrees on these. My kids are going to eat with us today, and we usually like to cook stuff a little bit more just because they're eating. So now I want to put this other steak over here, the one that had been off indirect and is getting that lower and slower cook. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to flip it until we reach that 135 and we get a little bit of a crust. Now keep in mind, this one is not going to have the same amount of crust as this other one, and that's natural because we're cooking this one over fire the whole time, and this one cooked indirect for the majority of the cook. So just about 5 minutes later, you could see that these fajitas are around 80 degrees internal. There's still plenty to go. We're also gonna go ahead and flip this other fajita right here. And again, you can see that there's so many flames. That fire is kind of not out of control, but it is going. So we're deep right here in the thickest part of this fajita, and we're sitting right at 132. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off, and we're gonna put that inside. You could see that we did get a little bit of the grill marks there, but it's nowhere near as much as this other piece of fajita. The other thing that you can notice is this has a much deeper red color, whereas over here, it's just a lot browner, a little bit more golden. So there's definitely a difference in the physical attributes of these fajitas. So now that we're completely done with both of these fajitas, I wanted to get a side-by-side comparison right here just so we could talk about the differences of the texture as well as the size. So the one that we cooked a lot lower and then just seared in the end kept the shape a lot better than this piece right here. So you can see this kind of shrunk up and puffed up a little bit, which is not necessarily bad, but again, it's just something to think about. I told you guys earlier about the color differences here, and this one doesn't have nearly as much texture. If I had to guess, I'm going to like this one better because I've talked to you guys so many times about how much we love texture, but I've never really cooked fajitas like this right here, and I am interested to try them out. After around 30 minutes, our fajitas are completely done. So the one that we cooked low and slow took around 30 minutes, and the hot and fast one took anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes. A very, very, very quick cook, and that's one of the advantages of doing it that way. But we're going to cut both of these open. We cooked them both to around 135 degrees internal. We're going to talk about the texture. We're going to see if they taste any different. We'll try pulling them apart to see if the tenderness is the same or different. And in the end, we'll let you know which ones we like better. So we're going to go ahead and start by slicing the one that we cooked low and slow. And oh my, that feels so tender right there. My gosh, I wish you guys could feel that. I am going to go ahead and hold up a piece right here for you guys so you could see what we're working with on these fajitas. My gosh, I mean, they're barely holding themselves together. You could see that these are really, really tender. Oh my gosh. Well, there's a little bit of that sinew in there, no big deal. But when you actually get a piece of that meat, these are super duper tender. They're super duper juicy. You guys can probably see right here that this thing is packed full of moisture. Let's take one more quick slice. And again, you guys can see that this piece of fajita is just absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the fajitas that we grilled over direct coals the entire time. And one of the things that I could tell you already is that I can feel the texture as I am slicing into these fajitas. They still feel really nice and really tender as well. Let me go ahead and pick this up. You can see that this is a little bit more on the medium rare side than the ones that we cooked low and slow. Let's go ahead and see if they're as tender. And I could tell you what, they're most definitely not. These are most definitely not anywhere near as tender as the ones that we cooked low and slow. I'm not saying that these are going to be better or worse. I'm just telling you that it feels like a fact. The ones that were cooked low and slow seem to have broken down more of that intramuscular fat. And I think we might have a more tender bite here. Now it's time to try both of our fajitas and see which one tastes better, see which one actually has the better tenderness. So just a second ago, you saw me pulling them apart, and the ones that we cooked low and slow seem to be miles ahead in the tenderness aspect. But let's see how it tastes when we're trying it. So these are the fajitas that were cooked low and slow. Let's take a quick bite. The tenderness is truly incredible. So I could feel it when I was pulling it apart, but to taste it, to actually have it in my mouth and just feel it basically dissolving is actually out of this world. That is a very good fajita. I'm not too sure how this other one is going to beat it. I do love texture, but man, that tenderness is just something to be super duper proud of. It didn't take much time at all, and I'm just really, really excited and really happy with the way that those turned out. But we still have our fajitas that were cooked hot and fast. Let's go ahead and see exactly how these taste. Honestly, I have no idea how, but I think that this is even better. The tenderness is truly still there. I know that that sounds insane because when I'm trying to pull it apart, it doesn't come apart as easily, but it's still just so soft. I think it's because it's Wagyu and it's a really nice cut that it's still so soft. It takes no effort at all to bite through, and I don't even feel like this is even 1% tough. That texture, that flavor that we get from putting it over the coals the whole entire time is just something to be desired. And honestly, that's exactly what I was missing on the low and slow ones. So again, drop a comment down below. Do you like to cook your fajitas low and slow or hot and fast? Have you ever competed into a fajita contest, and how did you cook them? I do think that there's something to be said for that low and slow cook. Maybe don't cook it as low and as slow for long. You can still get some of that texture and maybe get that tenderness. These were both absolutely incredible. I would never complain about either. As always, we really appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.